Welcome back, Canadian Baseball Network fans, to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. Jackson, I think I need like a Chris Russo type intro. Really grab people. Mad Dog, like on MLB Network. What do you think?
Hey, you know what? It does grab people's attention.
I don't know if I have it in me though, so I'll think about it. I'll think about it. But anyways, on this episode of the podcast, we are welcoming a professional coach, a professional pitching coach at that. So I'm really excited about this one, Mike Steed, who is the pitching coach with the Atlanta Braves High A affiliate, the Rome Emperors.
Appreciate him taking his time out of his busy schedule to join us. And yeah, like if you're a high school player, if you're a young baseball player, you're probably going to have lots of good stuff to hear on today's episode. So listen closely.
Yeah, and he's coached at all levels. He's coached with the Ontario Blue Jays in high school. He's coached college baseball. He's coached summer collegiate baseball, and he's now obviously in the professional ranks. So we're really excited for this conversation. All right, we're excited to be joined by Rome Emperors pitching coach Mike Steed. Mike, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, good. So before I dive into kind of the coaching side and all the questions I have about that, let's go back to the very beginning, if you can remember that time. What made you want to get into coaching to begin with?
I think it was, being, in college and being just I was an average player, wasn't great. Was good in Canada growing up and went to school in Oklahoma and just being around the game, loved it. Started as I got older to just really enjoy just the little intricate details, of what made players good. And obviously back then and the way it's changed now in terms of development, it wasn't as detailed back in the 90s. But no, I really enjoyed it. And to be honest with you, I had such a great experience. And the longer I stayed in coaching early, I just wanted players to experience that and, kind of enjoyed, seeing them get the best out of their abilities.
Yeah, so you've coached at the almost every level. Jackson and I were talking about this beforehand, high school, college, professionally, summer collegiate. What is
Yeah.
there kind of a most enjoyable moment or most enjoyable aspect of each? Maybe start with high school baseball with the Ontario Blue Jays even.
Yeah. I think you said it, correctly. I think every level there's, enjoyment for myself as a development guy, a coach, to see the players and it's all about, I think, in perspective, when you're at every level, it's moving them forward, and with the Ontario Blue Jays, I mean, the reality of it is it's, the number of players that, we've been fortunate enough to work with and move on to collegiate baseball, is the big deal. And then seeing, a large number get on to pro baseball and continue through there. But, even back before the Ontario Blue Jays and the GTA Stars, with the high school guys, it was just really fun to see guys mature, at 16, 17, and 18. And just kind of, you know, be able to take that next step and go to the next level, whatever that may be.
How much does that fuel you as a pitching coach, even now in the minor leagues? You want to get those guys to whether it's double A or the big leagues. How does that fuel your competitive side as a coach?
That's the exciting part. And it's funny, the last couple of years listening to, some people that I work with the Braves and talk about, either high school baseball or, you know, minor league baseball. The winning side of it isn't as high as the development side because you're always trying to move guys up to, get to the big leagues. With our Atlanta Braves, we want to win the World Series every year. The big league team steps on the field. And I think that's part of it now especially with the minor league guys. I've really enjoyed the low A last year in Augusta and, not getting ahead of ourselves in the conversation in Rome this year again. Seeing guys come, they're talented, they're professional baseball players, but to see them move up and when they get the call and, know they're going up to either Mississippi or AAA Gwinnett or, we were fortunate to have one player go Rome, Mississippi, Gwinnett to the big leagues last year. I mean,
Who was that?
AJ Smith-Shaver,
Yep.
one of our starting pitchers. And then just developing a relationship with him last year in Augusta. He's a young 20-year-old, 21-year-old. It's fun to see, it really is. And just the excitement, and in the end, they're baseball players, but they're just like a little kid moving up a different level, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of the kids playing the game, right? That's why they get to do it for a living. It's pretty cool, probably to see that firsthand. Going from high school to coaching college to coaching, professionally, What are some of the biggest differences you see as far as how you have to coach them and how you get them to that next level?
I think it's, people have asked me that question a lot. And obviously, even, moving into pro baseball, about what the differences are. I think, no matter what level you're at, it's about developing the relationship. And that might be cliche. And I think that's when I've been fortunate enough to, over my career, learn along the way. I'm still learning every day. I mean, I'll be 54 years old this year and been coaching for 30 plus years. And I'm still learning, how to perfect my craft as a pitching coach, as a manager, as a coach, whatever that may be. And it is all about the relationships. I think, building that and reading each player, and how to, it's the old saying where, you may have to do the same thing with three or four pitchers, but you have to do three or four different ways to articulate what you're trying to get across or why you're trying to do that. And, I think when the player knows why it will make them successful, they're completely on board, and it's a trust factor, as well. I guess I've had a good way of being able to massage egos, and deal with failure, with a lot of young players. I mean, because even still today, I call them young. The players I deal with the Braves are still 22, 23. I mean, they're still young guys, just at the forefront of their career.
Yeah, so talking a little bit about, the high school to the pro game, how has your coaching style changed over the years? Obviously, technology is a huge thing now, but even those relationships, is it different coaching players now than it was even 20 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is. I think everyone's talked about society and where it is. I think one thing that's stayed constant is I think young players they're craving structure, organization. I think as coaches, how me personally, how we went about. Of course, I was that hard ass yeller screamer, tough guy when I was a young coach, and that's who I played for. Those type of guys. And then, as I've gotten older, just kind of dove into more, I guess, the psyche of a player and how they react to certain things. And this is aside from the develop, the technology as you were talking about. I think I've realized just the relationships as I alluded to earlier. Yeah, it's become more personal or whatever. And I think they've actually become deeper, in terms of, one-on-one relationships, and just understanding what they're going through a little bit more, and knowing where they want to get to. And with the high school and pro guys, it's a little different. I think you got to stay on the high school guys a little bit more just because they're younger and they're trying to learn routines and they're trying to, figure their way out into the next level. And, the pro guys, same deal. They're trying to build routines and get to the big leagues, but, they are professionals. They're learning how to be professionals, but they're a lot closer to that than what the high school guys are.
When we're talking about high school players, you spend plenty of time around them. And this country in particular, you hear a lot about how maybe a disadvantage to be Canadian and as far as development and time on the field. Is that still an issue, or do you think that's been kind of fixed over the years based on some of these programs?
Yeah, I think so. To be honest with you, when I look at American kids composed to our players up here, I honestly, I think we're just as talented. I don't think there's I don't think there's any crutch anymore for us as Canadians to lean back on. I think our kids have every opportunity here in Canada to develop, to play, to be seen. Yeah, sure. Would we like the weather to be 85 degrees for 12 months of the year and to get some of our great athletes outside and be on the field? Because I do believe that makes you a player, but there are plenty of programs around this country that have done a great job, putting our elite level players on the same pages or levels as some of the players that are being talked about in the United States.
I mean, I'd love for it to be 85 degrees and sunny out all the time too, but that's those are for different reasons, I guess.
Right, absolutely.
So, who's the best? And this question isn't necessarily who had the best career, but the best Canadian, or maybe there's a couple, best Canadian high school arm that you've seen or you've coached.
That I've coached. That's a tough question. I think somebody asked me about that. I think Jordan Balazovic was one of the better arms recently, I think. And the funny thing is, he still pitches in the IBL, but there's a guy by the name of Brad Greaveson,
Yeah.
um, who wasn't a pro, went to North Central Texas Community College, played in a Junior College World Series as a freshman. In fact, won the Junior College World Series with Danny Gibbons, Jeff Martin, Derek Rapini, and John Lockwood. They were the 5 guys that went down there. Brad transferred to southeastern Oklahoma or somewhere like that. But he might have been at the time, this was 1990, I want to say 98, 99. He was a guy, just complete package. His stuff was good, could, throw it over the plate. His compete level was off the charts. So he's probably the best guy that never played professional baseball that I had coached. But I've been, like I said, I've been fortunate with the Ontario Blue Jays, and I mentioned Lockwood. He was a pro, had a great career. I've
Pitched in
been
the
fortunate
Olympics too, didn't he?
He did, yes, yeah, John. He pitched in the Mariners organization, and a few others. Zach Pop, who I still have a relationship with, who pitched for us with the Ontario Blue Jays. Mentioned Jordy. There's just a number of guys that are been fortunate to work with, but I think probably Jordy stands out the most, in terms of a high school pitcher.
Baseball season is back underway, which means summer is right around the corner. And the place to be this summer for young baseball players is the Baseball Zone's summer camps. This July and August, the Baseball Zone is offering indoor and outdoor camps. It's a fantastic way for young athletes to improve their skills, make new friends, and of course have plenty of fun. And if you sign up before April 30th, you can get 15% off the 4- and 5-day camps. They're also offering a summer membership this year. That's unlimited summer camp access for $9.99. For more info and to sign up, head to thebaseballzone.ca.
So you mentioned a couple of times, coaching these younger minor leaguers for the most part in high A and low A. So for a Canadian pitcher listening to this, what kind of separates a good high school college pitcher from a professional pitcher?
I think polish. And I think even you can talk about a 18 or 19-year-old professional pitcher that just may have a little more polish in terms of how he moves, maybe some physical strength. In the off season, I'm around obviously a lot of high school pitchers here in Canada, and I think it's everywhere. I think there's a huge emphasis now on velocity and stuff. And don't get me wrong, that's the same as at our level as well. If 95 to 98 to 99 is obviously better than 90 to 92. But, what I think gets lost in all of that is, 99 to 100 isn't very good if it's only in the strike zone 1 out of every 5 pitches. So I think it's a matter of, I think our guys at the pro level move a little better. And I think that's what a lot of our front office people, I think our scouting department with the Atlanta Braves, I think our pitching coordinators with the Atlanta Braves, focus on, not only strength and stuff, but how a guy moves in terms of, is it going to translate to, pitchability, throwing it over as simple as I can be. The high school kids laugh at me all the time. Keep talking about just throwing it over, throwing strikes. I'm like, yes, you have to throw strikes. You guys can laugh all you want, but we talk to our pro guys as simple in terms as we want to get to 0-2, 1-2 on 3 pitches as quick as we possibly can. Hitting's hard. It's very hard. And for some reason as pitchers, we want to make it tougher on ourselves by trying to trick the hitters.
I was always told through high school and college that don't give them too much credit because because hitting is so hard, and I will die on the hill that it's the hardest thing to do in sports.
100%.
But when you're back home, then talking to some of these Canadian high school arms, what are some of the key points of advice that you give them as far as from your experience coaching professional baseball for players that want to get to that point?
Yeah, as early as you can, find a routine. Number one, I think that fits you. I think, one thing I've always said to my players is, every one of you has to have a mirror, and it has to be your own mirror. Too many times you guys look in everyone else's mirror and worry that, the reflection isn't exactly who you are. But I think building that routine, I think the other thing trying to get through to them too is understanding the progression of your development career. And it's no it with the high school kids, I think it's strength and velocity and stuff and shapes and all that. And the high school guys all want to throw 92, 93, where their body just won't allow them to. And I've seen a lot of really good young 14, 15, 16-year-old arms this winter just cruising around to some different places. And, wow, I hear, he's only 80, 82, 83. And I'm like, cool, perfect. I said, because that body moves very well. It's clean. He's got a strong delivery as a 15-year-old, and he has no idea what he's doing type of deal. So, and it goes to moving up to the pro level in routines and progression, the same thing. We've got some guys that just, if you say, hey, just take a step back and look where you are. What's the organizational plan for you this year? Well, it's to develop my slider. Throw a higher percentage of sliders in the zone early and counts. Okay, that's it. And if you look, that's going to take you to next year, which will move you up. And, it's that old, everybody wants it now. And I understand that, you have to understand that, but that's the coaching side of it, to make you, make them believe that this is the path they're on. This is going to happen. Continue to put the work in, and not to rush success. I think that's been my biggest message to a lot of the high school kids.
That's funny that you say that, because do you think there's a little bit too much emphasis put on rushing that development, rushing that success, adding velocity? Obviously, velocity is important. No one's saying it's not. Stuff is important, but like you said, the kid that says he only throws 82, is there too much pressure sometimes and too much expectation put on some of these kids?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I agree with that statement, Matt. I definitely think there is. And one. Again, I guess it's because I'm getting older and wiser or whatever. And yes, I've been guilty of that. We've all been guilty of that. If we've been in the game long enough, and I think it's a matter of just what they're put into in terms of the recruiting part of it. I think, not that because I'm on the pro side, but I do think there are some professional scouts that now, listening to how they talk and going back, that I understand what they're saying. They're not looking for the 95-mile-an-hour fastball from a high school guy. If it's there, sure, everybody knows that. You and I could say, hey, that's a third rounder. Yeah. That's a neat. My wife, they could do that. But I think the pressure for the high school kids and the collegiate level stuff and the commitments and what they do. But social media has killed it. It's crushed a lot of realistic, recruiting timelines or profiles or development profiles, because there are still a lot of really good, I guess, college coaches, pro scouts out there that understand what progression looks like, and where a kid, if a 15-year-old's throwing 82, 83, that's pretty darn good. Everyone wants the easy way out and find a 15-year-old that's throwing 92 and then commit him to whatever X university.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you talk about that, because we just had Joey Hawkins on, who's recruiting coordinator for Missouri State, and he said the same thing. So it's interesting to hear that it's kind of a similar mindset all the way through the game from college, and he coached professionally as well. But
yes,
from college to professional, that it's kind of, there is a bit of maybe too much of an emphasis on certain things coming up.
I think so. I think it's. I think you're going to see everything like cycle. It really does. Again, been in the game a long time, and it does cycle through. Obviously, with the, with the portal and the draft being 20 rounds and all that. Yeah, I think it's going to be the mainstay. The guys that are true baseball guys and understand what development looks like, they're going to be the ones that are successful, have successful programs in college, have really good organizations, and then I think guys that, they're looking for either the quick fix or the easy fix, or they're looking to reinvent or buck what the baseball industry says. I think those are the guys that fall behind. But that's Mike Steed's opinion.
So that's why we have you on, to get your opinion. So what about, we talked a little bit about the quick fixes or maybe rushing development, but what about workload for players in this country? There's all kinds of showcases and recruiting agencies and a summer season, their winter training. How do you kind of view development from that angle, as far as what players should be doing 12 months a year?
I think that's the one thing. I do think there's really good development guys, in this country that understand it. I think going back to our last topic was the society of what and the pressure these kids are on. I think our biggest problem right now with Canadian baseball players is we're developing too many showcase kids. And I saw it. Went down for one day at T12, which or Futures, whatever it's called now. Again, awesome event, big time, love it. Think it should be bigger in terms of exposure for the guys. But again, I'd see a kid go out and throw 88, 89 first inning. Awesome. It's whatever it was, September. And then he come out for the second inning and be 83, 84. And I'm like, from the dugout to the half inning to back to the mound, you lost 5 miles an hour somewhere, and I don't. Pocket. Yeah, that's right. I don't think that I'm a believer that workload, there's never too much workload as long as it's managed, and I just think guys don't manage their workload well, or they're going out there and they're throwing 15 pitches, 1 inning at a time at a showcase. And all they're doing is trying to light up the radar gun, which a lot of those showcases, that's all it's about. But then they're not doing anything in between those showcases. Or, I did have a young man say to me, yeah, I asked him, I saw him in October, kind of at a showcase event. Said, okay, when's the last time you're on the mound and really, the pitch? He goes, about 17 days ago. I was like, okay, that I think that's the problem. I think we need to get back to building pitchers, and just not showcase arms.
How does the baseball in this country get back to doing that when there's been such a focus on the radar gun, the scouting ratings, where you are on this list, that list? How do you get back to just building good pitchers and then letting them go from there?
I think I'm saying it's probably there'll be some people that are against this. I think if you're going to be a pitcher and you're going to build a pitcher, the pitcher has to pitch. And I think that's the way it goes. And I think a lot of it has to do with playing. I think we do have to play. We have to pitch. I mean, that's the best practice in the world. You get immediate feedback. You talked about technology. I think maybe teams or whatever should invest in a little bit more technology to track, certain things, in terms of just velocity stuff. I mean, it's easy. You don't need spin angles and, vertical break, horizontal break, all that stuff. I mean, that's great. It's awesome. Love it. We have all that in the world of pro baseball, and it really does help with development. But I think just being on the mound under the lights, pitching in a game, obviously monitoring workload. But, as a young pitcher goes, I think he should face hitters twice a week, as it goes through. And I don't mean in January, February. But as you get into April, May, June, July, August, September, sure, you can do that. And I think it's just a matter of, there are a lot of smart pitching coaches. There really are, and I think it's just a matter of educating some of them and pulling back. We all want to win. We all want to win when we put the uniform on. And, whether I'm coaching in Little League or, as high as I can get in pro baseball, at the end of the day, I want to win. But sometimes that's not always the top priority or the top of the totem pole, and I think it's a matter of the $1 million question is, how do we manage that?
Right.
To develop more. And we're developing some really good arms. I just don't think we're developing enough of them.
Where's that balance come? Because we spoke to Tyler Black on this show, the Milwaukee Brewers, very close to the big leagues. And he said the Brewers minor league system put a lot of emphasis on winning, obviously development,
Sure.
But winning was a big part of that. Do you think high school baseball in this country should put a little bit more emphasis on winning? Not sacrificing development, but it seems like it's all development sometimes, and winning, then that compete level can sometimes take a back seat.
Yeah, no doubt. And I've said, like I said, a lot of games are practice, and I've said that or whatever. But you're right, winning is part of development, and I think it needs to be meshed together. And I think, part of development is winning, in terms of certain things. But I think in order to do that, I just think, I think league-wide structure, I think playing for something, I think going in and, let's face it, just putting flat out, either we're talking pitching limits, pitching recovery rules. I know they're out there. A lot of them stink. I look at them and just kind of chuckle and laugh, about certain things. And then it comes down to enforcing it. It's someone to enforce it, the accountability of it. I think it can be done. I really do. And I think there's enough really good high level organizations across the country, I think, that would be on board with it. It's just a matter of, that outside entity, I think, that has to bring everything together, and as I said, enforce it. I mean, we have that in the minor leagues. We have committees and rules, and obviously it's enforced. Obviously there's a lot, we're under the microscope a lot more, and things are tracked easier, but that's still part of it.
So I want to talk a little bit more about your career now, and probably should have asked this question a little bit earlier. How did this opportunity with the Braves come about for you?
Really, it was obviously I was managing the Thunder Bay Border Cats in the Northwoods League, the summer collegiate, and COVID hit. So, year one, we just, built the roster in Thunder Bay. Ended up going to Bismarck, North Dakota. They played as another team, Mandan Flickertails, just with border and visas. I couldn't go. Next year, COVID was loosening up. We still weren't sure. Build another roster. Border said we're not opening. Hence, dispersed my roster across the Northwoods League again. So the third year came about, and the league banged it again for the third year. The Border Cats didn't operate, so I built the roster again, and finally, it's everyone kids around about the cliche about who and yes, you have to work hard and you have to have, background. But a good friend of mine was an athletic trainer in the Giants organization, and he had called me, and when he heard about the news, and he says, "Are you ready? You want it? Like, seriously, you want to do this pro ball thing?" I said, "Well, I'm 51 years old, man. How many guys get into pro baseball at 51?" And he goes, "Look, he knew the Braves pitching coordinator, from time they worked with the Cardinals. And he called Paul, and next thing I know, my phone was ringing. And Paul Davis, my pitching coordinator, we had an hour and a half long talk. And next call was with Ben Sostanovich, the assistant GM. And then I had a call with, our top analysts, and said to my wife, I said, "I think this is going pretty good." It didn't seem like interviews. They were great. They're baseball men. We just talked baseball and kind of philosophies. And then, a couple other calls, or another call, and then I was offered the job. So it was more so, just I was frustrated with the whole COVID thing and Border Cat thing. And this just, right time, right place, knew somebody who knew somebody, and, had some good conversations.
You got tired of constructing a roster and you just wanted to coach again.
Like I said, we laugh. My wife and I laugh about it all the time. I think I built 4.5 rosters in 3 years, and not one of them put a Border Cat uniform on.
That has to be a record. So take us through kind of a typical game day, we'll say, during the season for a minor league pitching coach.
So you're talking about during affiliate when we go up to Rome or whatever? Yeah. So usually I get to the stadium, depending on family in town, not around noon, 1:00. We'll say 1:00. I'll get there. I'll be honest with you, I'll go through, a little bit of a workout stretch or whatever. Our pitchers will start filing in around 2:00, 2:15. Before they get there, I'll just kind of look over some notes from the night before, or, if we get our charts or our reports in, sometimes it takes, 24 to 48 hours to generate some of our internal reports that we get. So I'll go over that, look at some video, start to put together, that night's notes for the starting pitcher. Usually I have them. The nice part about the minor leagues now is it's, Tuesday to Sunday, we get every Monday off. So Mondays are usually scouting report days for the following week and hitters. But, the pitchers will start to come in. We break it down because in the minor leagues, we'll have anywhere from 16 to 18 pitchers on staff. So, our first group will usually go out about 3 o'clock, stretch, early work. We'll throw our sides then. Second group will come out about 4:30. That's usually day after light group, right before batting practice starts. And then, usually 7 o'clock game, 6 o'clock, 6:15, somewhere around then, pitcher catcher meeting, in terms of that night, what the plan is. We talk more about what our pitcher's strengths are and what we're trying to accomplish that night, as opposed to what the hitters, how we're going to attack hitters. It's the
Right.
minor leagues. So, we're trying to develop what you're good at,
Yeah.
not what might beat that hitter that night. So we'll do that. And then, 6:20, 6:25, we'll go out to the field. Pitcher will start his pregame stretch. And from there it's, his throwing, his bullpen stuff. And then about 6:53, we'll take our stroll from the left field bullpen if we're at home into the dugout, and 7 o'clock first pitch. So and then from there, the nice part is with the pitch clock and some of the new rules, the games are usually about anywhere from 2:15 to 2.5 hours. And after that, I've got a game report to do on each pitcher that threw that night, and that's usually takes me till about 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11, and that's my day. That's
Yeah,
my
so
baseball day. So
those are long days. And Jackson and I were talking before we got on here about the schedule. What are some of the biggest challenges? This is kind of a two-part question. What are some of the biggest challenges to the minor league season? And what do you think players, whether in this country or high school or college in the US or anywhere, don't understand about what it takes to succeed at the professional level?
in a nutshell, I think it's again managing who they are and their time. We had a lot of players, and I've seen it the last 2 years, and I think it's my first year in Augusta. I had some buddies back home, some coaches here. About halfway through the year, said, "You tired yet? Is it a grind? Is the grind getting you?" And I'm like, "Man, what have I always told you?" I said, "It's not a grind." I said, "Am I tired certain days? Heck yeah, I am." That's just the way it is. But it's not a grind, and I think that's what the players start to learn is, how do they manage 132 games when they're either coming out of college where they played, if they played every game, it was 56 to 65, depending on what it was. But a lot of guys don't play every game because they're worried about workload management, and so they play 40, and then we ask them to play 132. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's adjusting their routines as the length of the season goes, and I think that's a big thing, and knowing how to adjust it. Some guys can stay on the same plan for 132 games, and be healthy, strong, and all that. Some guys have to tailor some stuff back just to, maintain some energy. Other guys may have to tweak some other things. So I think it's just the constant tweaking of your routine, not changing a ton, but just tweaking it to get through the 132. Because, everyone's goal once you sign a pro contract is to play into November, and win the World Series. So that's, Wednesday, our big league guys start, and they're hoping whatever the final date is, November 2nd or whatever it is this year, they're hoisting the World Series trophy. So, I think it's just that the length of schedule is the biggest thing.
Yeah, so we talk about workloads, all the way up. We've touched on that. How much of that adjusting the routine is player driven versus you versus the organization's goals for the player?
I think it's at least with the Atlanta Braves. I think it's very cohesive, like together. I think there's the communication's awesome. Like, especially with our pitchers, especially. We're transparent. We give them as much information, as they need or as they want, or sometimes probably even more. I've told them, some guys like all the information in the data, some guys don't, but I'm always giving it to them just so they know, so they understand. And that's right from the top, from our pitching coordinator, from our assistant GM they're very transparent with the guys, good, bad, or ugly. There's no questions with the Atlanta Braves, at least as the pitching staff.
This is more of a general baseball question. Who are some guys that you're really excited about within the organization?
If you look at, just even recently, our first rounder last year, Hurston Waldrop, he's the right-handed pitcher out of Florida. He's going to be pretty good, and I think he's going to move pretty quick. I think one thing I've noticed, and this is just my observation, if again, if you have good stuff, if you throw it over, if you force swings, you get guys out. If Schnitt thinks you can help him win a baseball game, you might be in the big leagues tomorrow, type of deal. So, I mean, hopefully all of our pitchers see that with the Atlanta Braves. And, Hurston, went from low A to high A to double A to finished in triple A last year. Smith Shawver, we talked about earlier, excited about him just because he's 21 years old, with the stuff. There's some other, we've got a young Latin kid named Juan Carlos Lara. He's 20, he finished the year in Rome last year and just electric stuff, big time wipeout slider. And, he has big league stuff. He's 20, he's just, not, he's learning how to pitch. He's learning how to, carry himself, conduct himself, come to the park every day. So, from that standpoint, he's exciting. We had a undrafted left-handed reliever. He's from just outside Augusta, Georgia, played at a Division II school. I can't remember which one. His name's Hayden Harris, little left-handed pitcher, 5'11". He'll run it up there 93, 94 with a crazy slider. And, he should move pretty quickly. If he does what he showed in the minor leagues in the first 3 levels. So that's pretty exciting. And then that's a huge compliment again to our people that are evaluating. And I mean, he was an undrafted guy that I think signed for mileage to drive from Augusta, Georgia to Northport, Florida. And now he's, going to big league camp, a year and a half in. So exciting. We've got a lot of it's I'm just kind of looking over my pitching list. We got a lot of young guys and there's even some guys that haven't thrown much, and we've got a couple Canadian kids that are younger, and Adam Meyer and Adam Shoemaker. Cedric de Grand Prix was with me last year for the end of the last half of the year. Those Canadian pitchers, they're exciting to see what they can do, going forward. And that's pretty cool having some Canadian guys within the organization, along with, David McCabe and, Pierre Olivier Boucher, who I don't know him very well. I haven't met him yet, but, another Canadian in the org.
A lot of Canadians in the Braves organization, and Adam, we actually spoke with Adam Meyer back during his college days, so that's an interesting one to keep an eye on for sure. So my last question for you is, what's next for you? What are your goals going forward? You mentioned you entered professional baseball a little later than most people, but looking down the road, if you do that or not, where do you kind of see this path taking you? Where do you hope it takes you?
It's funny. I don't know if going into it, I don't think I ever had a goal of, did I want to be a big league pitching coach? I don't think that was my goal. I think getting into professional baseball, I think I really enjoy coaching, mentoring, being around the younger players. Do I miss managing a little bit? 100%. Would I like to manage in the future? Yes. But after being in it for a little bit, if someone ever said you want to be a big league bullpen coach or a big league pitching coach, I probably wouldn't turn that down either. But it's funny. I don't want to, I don't have a main goal. I guess that's sounds weird or cop out or whatever. I think everyone wants to get to the big leagues, but I just want to do what I do well. Help the Atlanta Braves move players up. And as you said earlier in the conversation, I would love to see 2 or 3 or 4 guys that I've, had on my pitching staffs over the last couple of years, take the ball at Truist one day and pitch a big league game. So, that's still first and foremost, my goal is to just keep helping guys move forward.
So you're not on a fast track to take Brian Snecker's job, is that what you're saying? I don't think you do this podcast anyway, so you can say it if you want.
No, I think we're all good. I think, I think the Braves are so good because of who Steed is. I think just who he is and what environment he creates in that clubhouse. And, And I mean, the players are really good. Don't get me wrong, the players are really good, but he's pretty awesome at what he does.
For sure. So actually, I want to go back a little bit to talk to about some of the Canadians in the Brave system. Adam Meyer, Shoemaker, Degrand
Yep.
Prey. Tell me a little bit about those guys and how you see them projecting forward, looking kind of at their ceilings.
Sure. I mean, look at Shoemaker. Shoot, 6'6", 225. I just saw him a couple weeks ago in London, just going through his throwing program. He's young, he's immature as a pitcher, not as a person. He's a great guy, works hard. We always laugh about it. He'd be a sophomore in college, if he had gone to school. So, here he is, I had him last year in Augusta, and, she was never a national team guy, never anything like that. And, he came out and he threw game 2 of the season in Augusta last year in Columbia, and there were 4,500 people in the stands. So everything like that is new. People
Yeah.
laugh about it and say, "Oh, that'd be awesome pitching in front of all that people." Okay, wait till you get there, and see how your mind and your heart reacts to it. So I think he's got a really good future. We're hoping, to see him move a little bit this year, just because the physical stuff is there. He just needs to build some consistency with it. Meyer's been, I think everyone knows he's been hurt.
Yeah.
He's been coming back. Hopefully he's full bore, ready to go. He's been throwing sides, and I think this will be a great year for him to actually get out of the complex. Get to an affiliate, and actually, pitch. Which he needs to do. And I haven't talked to him since last spring, because he was at the complex all year. But he's got the ability to do it. We've all seen it, throughout his college career.
It seems like the organization is very high on him, despite some of the injury, just based on where he was drafted and all that kind of thing.
Yep.
Do you get that sense as well that it's worth the wait to let him get healthy and see what he can do?
I do that. I think that's 100% right. And I think that's why there's been no rush. There's been no panic. Hey, let's just make sure he gets it right, and they do like him. Everybody I've talked to, just, wants him to get going and is in no rush, for him to start, ascending to the big leagues. Definitely not there. I think the Grand Prix been a little bit of a surprise in a good way. As fast as he moved up last year, and had a good run in Augusta, and then came up to Rome and continued on with his success. Extremely hard worker, good athlete. So I said, he's very, very hard on himself, again, getting back to that wants it now all the time. Yeah. And I think just talking to him and dialing him back and making him understand the progression, and the movement, he's in a really good spot. So like I said, it's exciting for all those guys. And, as I said, on the position player side, I don't know Boucher that well. Obviously having Coach David McCabe in high school, was pretty cool to see, him get drafted by the Braves, and, the great college career he had. And then, just last year, great season, fall league. The future is pretty bright for him.
Yeah, Atlanta's definitely, I feel like I say this about a lot of organizations, but Atlanta's definitely one to keep an eye on for Canadian baseball fans. Mike, this was a lot of fun, a lot of great insight. We appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck this season.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate it, Matt. Thanks a lot. And thanks for all you guys do again, for the Canadian game.
One thing I love about this podcast, Jackson, is the diverse Canadian voices we have in the game. And Mike Steed is another one of those, a pitching coach with the Rome Emperors, high A affiliate of the Atlanta Braves.
Really enjoyed hearing from him, his perspective, right, on pitching, and how, and you guys had a great discussion about, the modern game and development in the modern game. I really like when we have those conversations on this show, because, you don't hear it a lot elsewhere about what's going on right now in development in Canada for baseball, and specifically on the pitching side. And so it was really illuminating to hear, and I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it.
Yeah, and it's not always necessarily good, right?
Yeah.
We talked about workloads, we talked about expectations and what kids want these days coming up through high school and college, and it's not always positive, but he had some really good insight on maybe how to approach that and make it better. And then again, having him talk about the minor league routine and how they approach things at the professional level, and some of the Canadians in the Brave system was really interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And in fact, Meyer, of course, an old friend of ours. And so yeah, good to hear that he's doing well. And of course a number of Canadians in that Brave system.
Another great guest, and we're planning to have more of them. So stay tuned here to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast and subscribe to the CanadianBaseballNetwork.com. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out Canadian Baseball Network for extensive and comprehensive coverage of the latest in Canadian baseball. And the Baseball Zone, Canada's leading instructional baseball academy and training home to thousands of MLB pro, college, and youth baseball players.